Welcome back to Sheltered Sages, the show where two formerly sheltered homeschoolers, now adults, look at the complexities of life one crazy Reddit story at a time. Except not today, because my name is Andrew.
And my name is Philip. That was a twist.
Another special guest. Everyone give a warm welcome to Michelle.
Hello. Thank you for having me on, guys.
Absolutely. So you all probably saw the title, and it's definitely going to have something to do with therapy and TTRPGs or D&D or something. So Michelle, why don't you go ahead and give us a little bit of an introduction and kind of what it is that you do so we can kind of set the foundation.
Sure. My name is Michelle. I am a licensed clinical social worker here in the state of Florida. I'm a therapist, and I have a private practice where I provide individual therapy for individuals who might need anxiety treatment, depression treatment, and I also offer TTRPG supported anxiety groups. So I have been a social worker for about 25 years now. And then I have worked at the VA, I've worked in hospitals, I've worked in hospice, a little stint in DCF. I've kind of done all the social work things. And I've been an individual therapist for I've been licensed for the past 17 years now, I think.
Nice. Very nice.
That's fantastic.
So this is one of my wife's cousins. So this is how we all got to know each other and things like that. But definitely also in like the TTRPG space, you're one of the people that have both DM'd for us as a group, right, which is awesome. She DM'd for one of my birthday parties. We did an insanely high level battle underwater.
That is right.
It was so much fun. I played a guy with a Texan accent the entire time. My wife hated it. It was so much fun. But just a good time. Yeah.
I'm just waiting for you to say, yeah, she was the dungeon master for us in a campaign, and she's also my therapist. I'm bringing on the show just to talk about a couple things. It's going to be a therapy session for me. Right. Philip is just
here to observe.
I'm just here to observe. I'm not allowed to say anything.
There are some rules about being a therapist for family. I just have to throw that out there.
It's like, I'm pretty sure that violates something.
Yes, she's not either of our therapists, and hopefully she's not a therapist for you guys who are watching the show, but is here to give us more insights on a lot of the things that you probably would learn in therapy.
Absolutely.
That's right.
And while playing Dungeons and Dragons or other TTRPGs?
Yes. Tabletop
role-playing games.
Tabletop role-playing games. For those who don't know what that is, it's tabletop role-playing games.
Yes.
But
if you want to learn more about those, you should go back to first semester, our first Geek Dive. I think we did Dungeons and Dragons actually. So you can learn more about Dungeons and Dragons and stuff like that there. But for today, we're going to go ahead and actually dive into kind of what that looks like, kind of what your work entails as we explore more about it by starting the episode now. Awesome. All right. Well, to get the episode officially started, I'm going to start with the first question for you. And this is more just kind of laying the groundwork of what you do and kind of how it transitions nicely into tabletop role-playing games. So when someone asks you what you do, how do you kind of explain TTRPG therapy in plain English to someone who's never heard it before?
That is a great question. So, first of all, most people who are talking to me about therapy in general are kind of asking what therapy is in the first place, because I think a lot of people have misconceptions about what therapy is, how therapy kind of can work for someone to assist someone in dealing with some life stressors. So usually when I'm talking about therapy in general, it's like everybody has issues and stress that's creating a problem in their life. And sometimes those issues and stressors started when we were kids. Sometimes they started after a traumatic event. Sometimes they start just because as we age, sometimes our resiliency in dealing with stressful things doesn't always work out, or maybe we never learned really great skills when we might have been more sheltered as youth, and then all of a sudden we are completely without that, parental umbrella, and all of a sudden it's like, how do I pay bills, and how do I have a relationship, and how do I deal with work drama, and how do I do this and keep that balance that people talk about, like that's so easy to attain.
Yes,
and
so easy.
I know. So therapy is really about sitting down with someone who has some training to assist you in looking at things that are happening in your life and kind of identifying patterns and ways that we deal with them and creating solutions for how we can deal with things just a little bit better. So when I talk about what a TTRPG group looks like, it's not a typical campaign. Like, I think that is a misconception of, oh, you're just going to play Dungeons and Dragons for 2 hours. It's not really what that is. So it's using a skill tool, like using a TTRPG to learn how to deal with something like anxiety. Like if you are someone who has a lot of intrusive voices, a lot of rumination, which is when you think about things over and over and over again, or you're constantly thinking of the worst case scenario, or you're constantly trying to problem solve things that haven't happened yet, or you're constantly trying to rewrite arguments you've had in the past and say, oh, I wish I had said this, and then I would have said this. Or when you're trying to think about that argument you're going to have in the future and planning out everybody's parts in that argument, that's really what rumination is. And so the skills groups that I do teach people kind of real world strategies for how do you deal with rumination? How do you deal with catastrophic thinking? How do you deal with cognitive distortions or thinking traps? And how do you kind of change your thinking? And so what I talk about with TTRPG assisted therapy is role play has long been a tool in therapy, where if you were a married couple coming to therapy, you would be like, you know, tell me what your side of this is. Tell me what your side of this is. What did you just hear Philip say? What did you just hear Andrew say? You know, kind of talking through communications challenges, and you learn skills that way. And so you might role play an argument, or you might role play if you have a family member and you need to set good boundaries. Well, I'll be the family member, you be you, and we're going to talk about how we set good boundaries. So TTRPG fits really well into that session or that space to allow you to try to use anxiety reduction skills in a group with people, use problem-solving skills in a group with people, learn communication skills in a group with people, and give you practical attempts to use that. And then when you leave therapy, because that's the point of therapy, is when you leave the office of the therapist, you're supposed to put these skills into place. Like learning how to communicate with your spouse. If you leave the therapy office and you never communicate with your spouse, it doesn't really do anything for you.
That's not helpful at all.
If you learn how to do a breathing technique in group with someone and you walk out of the therapist's office and never use the breathing technique, it's like, do you have that skill? Sure. Are you thinking about using that skill?
Absolutely not.
So it gives like a practical application to allow people to utilize the skill in session. And then it also kind of lets them see what problem solving those skills with other people looks like.
Cool. Very cool. I love that. And I think it's one of those things that you kind of talk about how, especially, and that's one of the reasons why I wanted to do this on the show, is because especially for people who are in the homeschool community, we have that inclination of being a little bit more sheltered, a little bit more socially awkward. And as we get older, there's a lot of, I think, anxieties that we express. And looking at a lot of the different subreddits that homeschoolers are actively involved in, you see a lot of that anxiety present. And it was definitely something that I know I struggled with a lot when I started working, specifically, like I think I've talked about it on the show before, but working at the sheriff's office. I first started that job, and that was like the first time that I as an adult had to like get over my anxiety, and like I have to deal with this situation and this problem. And I dealt with that, but then I had more anxiety and more stress that built up on the backside that I never dealt with appropriately until like 4 years into it, when I had to be sent home from work and like actually go to PTSD therapy and all that fun stuff.
Yeah.
So I think it's so important what you're doing. I think it's cool that that's an option to be able to do that in that environment.
So I have a question, because it was a wonderful explanation of what you're using, but my question is, like, are you pulling out the game Sorry on the table and you're like, okay, today we're going to learn how to say sorry to each other and to ourselves? And like, what does that look like? Is it, how does that work?
So that's a great question, actually, because TTRPG doesn't just include Dungeons and Dragons, right? That can include Sorry. It can include other sessions. And there are certainly therapists out there that use different board games not just this one, to teach skills. Because if you think about it, if you think about the first time you learned how to play a game, the first time you played Chutes and Ladders, like the first time you played Candyland, right? You learned how to operate in a system. You learned how to take turns. You learned how to share. You learned strategy. If you played Go Fish, you learned how to take something and maybe give something to someone else. If you learned how to play Rummy, you learned how to set something down to get pieces that you needed. You, like, the skills you learn playing games, they're really a lot of skills that a lot of people use in daily life, right?
And
you
in
learn
group
a lot
therapy
of
as
that.
well. Yeah. I was like just realizing the stuff you're saying is like taking turns, being able to talk to each other, following the rules of this social context.
And I
It's
think like
group therapy stuff.
honesty too, like that's an interesting thing, like especially for something like Go Fish, you have to learn, oh, they called the card that I have. I could lie right now and not give them, but that's not the game. The game is being honest about it and and I deal with that sometimes with kids where I'm like, you know that this doesn't work if you're not following the rules correctly.
Right.
And so I think that's very interesting that you're talking about all of that.
Yeah, I mean, it really does, like, how we learn to play games is really how we set up like systems of fairness in operational life. And games are a way that we learn, like, whether or not an adult is teaching. I mean, back in the day when I was in like elementary school, I remember we used to play a game called Cartoon Freeze Tag. And so
Interesting.
it was, I mean, I don't know, this is what we
I
did.
love it. Yeah.
So you would like run around, someone was it, and then you had to run around, and before they tagged you, you could scream out the name of a cartoon, and that would like make you save.
That's awesome.
Like, how did we learn to play that game? That we learned to play that game by watching others, by like learning it as a group. It was never anybody sat down with instructions like, to play the game of Cartoon Freeze Tag, one must learn cartoon names, and then the person who is it must strike a person unless they stick out their hand and yell the name of a cartoon, and then they're safe. You can't hurt them.
In a British accent, it always has to be a British
that should
accent.
be the new standard for how we teach games.
It's in like a Julie Andrews kind of I agree. But I mean, it does come back to like, you think about the games you learn to play. And like, I think about the first couple of times that I played dodgeball, which I don't know, as sheltered kids, did you guys get the dodgeball experience?
Yes.
Dodgeball
Yes.
from, let me say, you got it from your dad, right? Or did y'all play
No.
PE?
That wasn't. It
that was
was
kickball.
kickball. But
Okay.
yes, we did have dodgeball experience towards there. If we could pause for a moment to talk about my dodgeball experience,
Yes,
and then we'll
I'm
get back into
very
therapy.
interested.
So every year there was a large testing thing. We called it CAT testing, where I'm from, where a lot of homeschool kids would go over and they would get tested to see how they line up with public school kids or just the rest of the school industry that's out there. During that time, I don't know if it was every day or just like one day during it, we would always have a massive dodgeball competition with all of the
That's
kids
awesome.
in the entire testing thing. And I remember it so specifically because we would train beforehand to learn, like, this is how you dodge, this is what you're doing, because you can't go out. This is the first time you're being around a bunch of other kids. If you get out the first time, it's like some people who thought they were really cool and didn't want to do it anymore, they would get out really quickly and they just walk away like, oh my gosh, this is crazy.
so beneath
Yeah.
Fire blowing up in the background as they're like slow-mo walking off the dodgeball field.
There were some people who took it so seriously.
Yeah.
Like, they would be jumping, doing flips, like dodging crazily. Seriously, it was
sounds true,
intensity.
though.
And then, like, the people outside, they would throw in them, like, it's probably not that fast, but it felt like it was like 100-mile-per-hour dodgeballs. Yes. So yes, I have had a lot of experience with dodgeball, but continue.
Right, but think about how so someone sat you down and were like, you're going to play dodgeball and be ready for this.
Yeah.
Like, I don't remember that. I remember a bunch of kids like, don't get hit by the ball.
Yeah.
And like what
it.
happens? Catch the ball. You caught the ball. That person's out. Like, what?
What a weird rule, but okay.
It's like,
Sure.
And you get to bring someone back in, you know?
right. But think about all the games you played as kids that sometimes, like, there was a game, Red Rover. You've heard of
gosh.
Red Rover?
We banned Red
Right.
Rover, but yeah.
We did ban Red Rover.
But Red Rover, like, did someone ever sit down and explain to you the rules of Red Rover?
I do genuinely think it was like one person kind of like talked about it, but then like we just did it. And like you just did it by playing.
Right.
Yeah.
Someone probably should have explained the rules, because as soon as a person starts running at you full speed,
start,
you're,
like,
you're like, oh no, what am I
funny.
playing?
Oh my gosh.
how many throats were permanently damaged by that game?
That is true.
But I mean,
is
again,
true.
you think about like how we learn to play games, and like what that actually is us learning how to kind of come together, decide on a set of rules, and kind of operate in those rules. And what is that if not society?
That's true. It's very
Like,
true.
I mean, it's true, but games are like this little subset of ways to interact with other people. And sometimes it's a lot less intimidating to sit down with a group of 6 people if you have something to do.
Yeah. I think
Like-
that's very true.
I think the first time you and I had met at like a wedding celebration
Yes.
prior. And then it's like, we're going to play a D&D campaign. Like, okay, like who's going to be in it? And it's just one of those things, like you might not know the person, but you're going to get an opportunity to learn who they are, and you're going to get to learn like how they work under stress. You're going to get to see that look of panic. It's like, what am I going to do?
Yeah. Got to see
gonna-
it quite often with me. Everyone
You're
is
gonna get to
dying
learn
in this
things
game.
like spiders live in trees. I mean,
Spiders live in trees.
Oh, sometimes I wish our sessions were recorded
That's
for
right.
like sound bites like that.
that's right.
Dude, just if you haven't played a TTRPG, just you will, when you do it, you get so many just fun, just
Inside
fun
jokes.
Easter eggs,
References,
so
little
many fun
pieces.
inside jokes.
Yeah.
Oh, it's such a fun time. But I think that's such a really good point that you're making in terms of just like, and especially it's one of those things that I think is certainly lost sometimes, like this day and age. I work with the after school taekwondo school that I've talked about before, and there are times where they're just playing on the floor, and they'll play games like Foursquare, or they'll play games like tag, or things like that. And the amount of times that like they come over to an adult to be like, hey, they're not doing this thing, I need you to fix it. And I have to, like, at first we were adjudicating and like making these things, but then it got to a point where I'm like, you all have to figure out how to do this yourselves. When I was in elementary school and we played Foursquare, that like 1 year I was in elementary school, there wasn't a teacher that was there making sure that we followed the rules correctly. It was the peers. We were all like, no, you're out, don't argue about it, you're out. Like that was kind of how it worked. So I do think it's very interesting, like the social skills that you build, and sometimes with especially like the overabundance of video games and technology, where like kids have parameters preset for them, that learning how to operate within the rules of like, no, we get to agree on this as a group,
Right.
is an important skill to learn.
Yeah, and I think that it goes back to why TTRPGs like create such great spaces. Because number one, you get that storytelling space, you get that place to create, you get that space to connect with people. But then the second part of it is there are some rules that are established in most systems that you have an arbitrator of fact and story who can kind of help settle things if needed. But it does give people an opportunity to learn how to communicate through conflict. Like, I want to do this, but I don't want to. How are we going to resolve this? Like, I'm just going to stomp off towards Felderwind by myself. It's like, really? That's your solution?
That's not going to end poorly at all.
There are owlbears in that forest, my friend. Maybe you want to reconsider.
Oh my goodness. But it's true.
It is. It's like it comes back to, it teaches that basic skill of communication. And I think that a lot of people feel that's lacking because we don't always have it as important a role in our lives, especially as more people go offline, or as more people are out of the office, or as more people are using technology more. We're not always learning those really good communication skills.
Absolutely. You had something?
But yeah, I love that. It's fantastic. And you're kind of talking about how TTRPGs, I'm going to talk like about specifically D&D,
Sure.
helps you learn those rules of the world and kind of goes into it. For the first campaign that I played with you, it was really interesting. The character I was playing, the Spiders Live in Trees character, he actually said that, technically me, who said that. He's an archer. And it was fun to play this character who is learning the world as he is experiencing it with others.
Right.
Kind of in that same way, this was my second campaign that I was playing as a character, but I want to experiment with like different world types and different styles of playing. So I was like, the best way to do so is to play a character who might not understand everything, who might see things in a weird kind of specific way that's different than everybody else who's around him. And it also helped me understand too, it's easier to ask questions. It's okay to not know things. It's okay because the other character I play, he's this very flamboyant, extra individual who pretends like he knows everything, but actually doesn't know very much of anything. And it was like that polar opposite. And so it helped me kind of go, yeah, I can ask a question. I can go to Michelle and say, hey, is it okay if I do this? Like, am I able to like grapple over to the other side, or is that? And she's like, nah, probably not. That said, if I'm learning from my character and like growing as a person, how does this differ between just playing a normal game, which you're already learning great things about life, to actually using it as therapy?
That's a great question.
Okay.
So recognizing that, again, therapy is not necessarily just have someone sit and listen and hold space for your story. Therapy is about how we grow and how we learn to understand what our story is, and things that might cause us to be uncomfortable or dysregulated or, just not really feeling our best. And so the way that TTRPG can really help in a therapeutic session is, say you have really severe anxiety and, being around other people is uncomfortable for you. Asking for help is uncomfortable for you. When we get to play outside of that area of judgment, like when you get to be someone who can ask questions, when you get to be someone who can fail spectacularly, and it just creates a story instead of creating like this huge like schism in your head about, oh my God, I fell down yesterday in the office and everybody saw it. And I know that people just think that I come to the office and I'm so stupid and I just trip over my feet all the time and they think I'm clumsy and they think I'm too big and nobody's saying it, but that's what they're definitely all thinking. Like, it gives you the space to experience failure. And I think that that's one of the great things about TTRPG, like applied skill. So applied role-playing game therapy is, I think one of the great things is it gives the opportunity to fail, not based on how you want to do it, but how the dice is going to roll.
That's fair.
And so going back to that idea of role-play is something we do a lot in therapy. If I were having trouble setting boundaries with my aunt, and I was working with my therapist on, my aunt always calls me, she asks me for money and I just don't know what I'm going to do. And every time she calls me and I just get so upset and I just start crying, and then I end up giving her the money and I can't pay my bills. And it's one of those things that people experience that as a reality.
Yeah.
And saying, hey, you be the therapist, I'm going to be me, or you be my aunt, I'm going to be me, and I'm going to role play out like how we might set a boundary about that. And we do that. And the therapist's basic tenet is we want our clients to succeed. And so you can really get into the idea of, oh, you did so good. That was such a great job you did.
Yeah.
I loved how you told your aunt that, I understand that it's painful and you were empathetic, but you still set a firm boundary and you did it. Great job.
I did it. Woo.
Right. But the difference is like, that's not a tested skill, right? Like you set that boundary and you let the client go and you're like, gosh, I hope when she talks to her aunt, she's going to make that happen. And then she comes in the next week, oh, I didn't do it.
I gave all the money again.
She called me and her water was off and I was so upset, and I just ended up like spending the money and I felt bad, but I couldn't. And I tried to do if it just didn't work. She never listens when I set boundaries. And so it like, okay, well, let's try again and we'll do the role play again. And maybe you add a little bit more pushback if she's trying to set a boundary. And that's just the normal kind of way that a therapist would develop those systems. Like you test out doing that skill, test out why you need boundaries, and you try it and you see if it fails or not. Well, now in a group of TTRPG groups are usually not more than 6 to 7 people. It has to be small because, you know, if combat's happening, that's a lot. But you have the opportunity to, if you're learning to set boundaries with a character, like say your character is a little bit of a thief and maybe you steal things and I don't want you to steal things from me. And, you know, like we recognize that we're like talking and I said, hey, you know, something's gone from my bag. Oh, really? It's gone? Like, what happened?
That's crazy. Help you find it.
A perception check, and I noticed that your footprint is right by my bag, and it's your shoes, and I think you took it. And you're like, yeah, I did take it. And then you get to practice in the story, setting a boundary like, I would prefer you not take things from my stuff. Like, we have a group inventory, and I think that everything for the group should stay in the group inventory, but everything that's ours in our personal bags, I would really prefer if you did not go into my bags.
Even if it's shiny?
Even if it's shiny. And the boundary is, if you go into my bags and steal my stuff, I am going to put like itchy plants in your bedroll and give you poison ivy.
Oh, that's a boundary right there.
That's a boundary.
Yep.
So, like, but giving you the opportunity, and then you do a persuasion roll and see, you know, or an intimidation roll, and you see.
I think it's intimidation, honestly. Yeah.
And you see if that was successful. And maybe the intimidation roll was a 1, and you're like, I don't think you're really going to put itchy plants in my bedroom.
You're not that kind of person.
But it gives you the chance to be like, I won't put itchy plants in your bedroll, but it really upsets me when you take stuff from me, and I would really prefer that you not do it. Would you not do that?
Because I care.
Yeah.
I'll stop taking your stuff. I'm sorry.
Thank you so much. Like, right? So it does like create that space for sometimes things don't go right. Sometimes in a skill that doesn't work. With a lot of my clients who work a lot with anxiety, you know, they're trying to prevent panic attacks, and sometimes they're not successful. And so recognizing that skills are about, they don't always work. Sometimes in real life we roll a 1. Like sometimes we fail horribly at trying to do something.
Sometimes,
And I mean, that happens. That's reality. And so that's kind of one of the ways that it can be very therapeutic. But again, it's not designed to be a campaign. And I think that it's really important to make that distinction. Like campaigns are designed for like long-term or long-form storytelling. They're designed to create characters, connections. They're designed to, you know, tell a story and be an outlet. These are, the best way I can think of it is it's like vignettes. Like these are vignettes and stories that we're telling to practically apply this skill.
So I'm not saying my aunt is an owl bear that I have to attack in this thing and then and finally defeat her. Okay.
But you know what you do get to do, and I think that this is really a fun part of applied role-playing games, is you get to decide the character you're going to play, just like a regular role-playing game. But it's perfectly okay to decide that you're going to play your personality. And like when I was doing my training for it, like, and I really like this and kind of allow people to do whatever they want, but you can choose to play a really flawed version of yourself.
I often do.
Yeah. You can choose to play an ideal version of yourself. And you can choose to play like a mix, like who you might want to be. Or you can play someone that you admire. Like create those characteristics of that character in that person and decide to play in that sheet. So say you're someone who has anxiety, but you also have a really hard time dealing with anger. You could definitely play like a character who has difficulty with anger. And like, if that is how you were playing that character, not a barbarian. I know what you're thinking.
Yeah, I am thinking that. I would like to rage, but because I have developed my ability to handle intense feelings, instead I will just fight at a normal emotional value.
Lose all utility for that character.
I will fight in a mindful way.
I will say, I just to caveat that, I do love that there's like a new wave of like rage that's happening where it's like, it's not like the screaming at the top, but like that cool, calm, collected, like I'm so angry right now, but you will not see it.
Right.
That is also a form of rage.
That's true. That's true.
So, you know, it is an option.
Acute stress response fight.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I did want to ask this because you were talking a lot about like specifically the scenario of stealing something from someone's bag. And that's like one of the things when I play home games, I make a very big rule of like, hey, we don't do player versus player stuff because it can just help to build cohesiveness at a table. And being a professional dungeon master, I have a lot of strangers at a table sometimes that I want to make sure don't do things the wrong way. But when you're like, especially dealing with something like anxiety or things like that, do you have any safety tools, or how do you help like establish that safety at the table for these people who might not be as comfortable with that?
Yes, and that's a great question. It's an important, not just for applied TTRPG therapy, but regular D&D as well. And so I will say that I do have a safety tool that I utilize, and it is basically a triggering sheet that people go through, and they might check off things like maybe they have difficulty with spiders. Maybe they have difficulty with, like in one of our campaigns, we had someone who didn't want to see animals harmed.
Absolutely.
We had someone who might have a history of sexual assault. Maybe someone who is not feeling comfortable with any type of romance at a table. They have the ability to basically stop sign and say red, green, yellow, this is fine, no. And go through that sheet. And then also, it's a little more intensive than lines and veils, which is themology, where in a safety tool, like there are certain things we decide ahead of time that we will talk about, and then there are certain things that we'll decide ahead of time that are kind of fade to black. So there's a line, there's a clear boundary, or there's a veil. Like it might happen, but it happens someplace far away.
Well, like for an example of that, one of my the big ones that we have in my campaign is like harm to children. That's a big one that I'm like, I don't want to see this on screen. I don't want to, but also I recognize that it is something that like is true in the world, and it does happen in certain environments and things like that, and it's awful to talk about, but also important to recognize like the safety of children is important too, and something we should fight for. So it's one of those things that I have as a veil, in the sense of, hey, it might happen and it might be talked about that it happened, but you are never going to see a child being hurt at my game table. But you might hear about a village where everyone was killed, and then
that would include children.
You would know that includes children in the process.
And I think that it's just important, number one, regular table, applied TTRPG table, you have that discussion.
Absolutely.
You say, like, this is how we're going to do this is how we're going to do this. And also, it's important to have some type of red flag system where if something is wrong, a player can gesture, they can do something quiet and private to the DM so that the DM knows that a timeout is needed. Like, oh, we're going to stop talking about this. The other thing about Applied TTRPG is it doesn't happen in campaign form. So we can stop and reset. So if someone is having like a really dysregulated moment, say someone is starting to get into like a panic state, we can stop and say, hey, we're going to pull back for a minute. Let's check on you. How are you doing? How are you feeling? Let's go ahead and everybody, we're going to do a breathing exercise together. We're going to reduce some of the tension right now. We're going to kind of reset our nervous systems a little bit. And then we'll get back into, tell me why that reaction happened. And that might be something you do privately. If that person feels comfortable in the group, they can explain it to the group. But recognizing that, as in anything in life, anything can trigger us, and it doesn't make sense. Like, our brain doesn't always make sense about what triggers us for what reason. So just recognizing that you have to be present, you have to be watching your players, and that's any DM though, because any DM has to get into kind of how we set safety up for a group, especially if you don't know them. I'm starting tomorrow a campaign with a bunch of therapists who have never played D&D before. But these aren't people I know.
Interesting.
So it's going to be important to send the checklist, to have a session 0, to talk about, lines and veils, to talk about how we pop ourselves out if someone is feeling uncomfortable. And that includes with therapists too, because a lot of times, just like any other medical professional or someone who works in law enforcement, sometimes your sense of humor can skew too dark.
Mm-hmm.
But
absolutely.
it doesn't happen for everybody. So we have to make sure that it's a cohesive table and a comfortable place for us to move forward from.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's awesome.
I do have a question about that as well, because while we're talking about D&D, technically the D&D is Dungeons and Dragons, right? So we assume you're going to be like dungeon crawling, which is going into these dark caves and finding monsters and, fighting them and then finding gold and stuff and coming out, or fighting a dragon, which does happen every once in a while across there. That's not all Dungeons and Dragons is, which is kind of funny in the moniker of what it's supposed to be. Like, you could have different timelines within the Dungeons and Dragons scope where it's like current times and you have cars and you're going different places, or you could have like a steampunk version of that and all these different storylines there. So my question to you is, first, I guess this is a two-part question. Are you using like current day times, like, okay, you're going to work and you're going to roll a 1 on there?
No, but
and
you
if
can.
not, like what, so how does that work? And then second part is, how do you still, if it's not our current day and time, apply those same feelings and like growths, like, okay, I learned to talk to you about not stealing stuff out of your bag in this party. How does that actually apply to real life?
That's a great question. So first off, the TTRPG like kind of campaign that I have set up, because I don't want to deal with backstory.
Yeah, it's okay.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But basically, you as a player have decided that you want to join an adventuring guild, and you're in training at the adventuring guild.
Nice.
Okay.
And so that's how everybody gets together. That's the tavern at the first part of the thing. Is everybody's in an adventuring guild. You're getting to go on adventures. And you have quests and stuff that are associated with you. Why does it translate? So let me ask you a question. If you had an aunt who was constantly asking you for money, and you learned how to set good boundaries with that aunt, and then you went to work one day and there was a guy who was constantly like calling you the wrong name and maybe standing a little too close. Like, say you go to work, that person stands too close to you, and then they also are someone who maybe just says inappropriate things.
Yes.
When you have some skill in setting boundaries, it is easy to move those skills over to different parts of your life.
Okay.
Because you've done it successfully and it's worked. And so learning those skills is about learning it, trying it, being successful or failing, repurposing what you've learned, and trying it in different sections.
Okay.
If you learn how to deal with anxiety because you are someone who has like panic attacks, and you have a lot of anxiety at your current job, if the anxiety for the job gets better and you start being able to work at the job fine, but then at home you start having anxiety because like you and your significant other are fighting, you still have those skills. Like, nothing's taken those skills away. Just because they were in the work drawer before doesn't mean you can't pull it out and use it on home.
They're all still tools in the toolbox.
Yeah, they're all still tools. And so sometimes it does take someone to mention like, hey, well, this used to work for you. Have you tried it with this situation? Well, no, I didn't, because I thought it was different. What makes it different?
That's true.
That's good.
I don't think about that as much, but like, yes, you're absolutely correct in the idea of like anxiety. Ways to deal with anxiety are generally the same, because while we sometimes try to think of it as this is this one place and this is another place and this is another thing, this is a game that I'm going into. When you're able to handle these stresses in any of these scopes, it kind of makes it easier in the specific scopes that you're looking to help out with. Like, it's all the same brain. You're the same person when you're going across that. And sometimes we go, well, I'm a different person here and I'm a different person here, and in this character I'm this, but it's still an aspect of yourself that you're learning and you're growing in. So there is no real reason why it can't apply to other places.
Yeah, but you have to think about it in different contexts, right? It's like when you see someone in a workspace and then all of a sudden you might go out to a restaurant and see that person, it's like, oh, that's that same person. They're just in a different place. So you can recognize things in different contexts. You can use like cues and skills in different contexts, but sometimes you just need a little bit of a nudge to do it. I will say that anxiety, when you think about what anxiety is, right? It's our acute stress response system. It was designed for us to be able to run away from things that were chasing us, to hide from things that were chasing us, or to fight things that were chasing us.
Is that what it's meant for?
That's all it is. That is all our anxiety system is. It's just, unfortunately, past hunter-gatherer days, it's not as helpful when you're worried about paying bills and problems with the missus, or difficulty with, family members, problems with your car. But biologically, your body responds the same way when you are worried about how you're going to pay a bill as it would have so just quick joke, everybody. If you come to therapy with me, I'm just going to tell you right now.
Here we go.
A lot of media references. And I don't like scary movies. And one of the scariest movies I ever saw was It. Back in the day,
scary.
the original one.
OG
The original one.
Okay. Oh, that was also a movie.
Horrifying. Anyway, clowns and sewers for me, like, just terrifying.
You're like, no.
So
that's one of your veils or your stuff. Clowns and sewers.
When I think about running from things, it's always a clown in a sewer. Like, if you see a red balloon, don't go near it. Like, it just makes sense. Don't go
scenario.
near it. But that is what your stress system was built for. Clowns and sewers.
Yeah, that's true.
It was built to run
specifically for that.
Yes. I will die on that. Like, it was designed to run away from Pennywise. It was designed to run away, to hide, or whatever. And so your body like surges in adrenaline, it surges in cortisol, it gives you about 40 other hormones to make you run faster, fight harder, and get away.
Yeah,
that's fair.
But if your body can't tell the difference between that and your bills, you have to learn how to regulate that response.
That's good.
And that's just the reality of what our anxiety system is. It's telling us we're in danger. Thank you for that body. Thank you for that mind.
Appreciate it.
How do we make that work in a world that is a lot of little stresses?
Yeah, I think that's really good. I love to, I think, like, honestly, I was really impressed with Inside Out 2 and their depiction of anxiety. I think that did a really good, like, modern example of just like, hey, and it's like it was presented as like, this is a friend, this is someone that's going to help you and there are benefits to it to some extent. Is it's like, I do want to be anxious about my grade a little bit so that I'm encouraged to study, but do I need to be so anxious about my grades that I can't sleep the night before the test because I'm worried I'm going to get a bad grade? It's like, it's that same thing of like, it's there to protect you, but it's not there to debilitate you at the same time. And so I think that's really good that like TTRPGs are a way to kind of simulate that and to create situations where that happens in a safe environment. But okay, so next question that I do want to ask. So is there a specific like verbiage or specific way that like once you've practiced these skills in a session or in a scenario, then how do you encourage them to like transfer those skills into the real world? Because obviously, trying to encourage like have a character go through the dark in a session will look very different from setting a boundary with your aunt in the real world. So how do you transfer those?
Absolutely. So the way the sessions are kind of built is the first part of it is just what we would call psychoeducation. Okay. So the psychoeducation is just talking about educating someone on the anxiety process and then an anxiety skill. So each session starts off with learning an anxiety skill. So one that I teach frequently in all of my sessions, not just group, is how do you stop rumination? How do you stop constantly overthinking, constantly worrying, constantly finding yourself just living in a scenario that happened in the past or living in a scenario you're worried is going to happen in the future. Like you're not present. How do you stop that? So I do this a lot, like with catastrophic thinking. So the start of a session might look like this. Like, say you are driving down the road and you're on a 3-lane highway. And on the right-hand side of the road is a guy on a bike. And you have a weird, intrusive thought of, oh my gosh, what happens if that guy crosses 3 lanes and goes in front of my car and I hit him? Oh my gosh, if I hit, I'd have to pull over, I'd have to get out, I'd have to run and check on him. I'd have to get my phone first. I have to get my phone first, call 911 because I have to make sure someone is on the way here to help me. And then I have to go, and then you have now set yourself up on this scenario where you're talking to the police, you're talking to your insurance company, you're talking to everybody. This has not happened. This was a random intrusive thought that just took your brain down a rabbit trail. You are 5 miles away from this guy now. He is still happily pedaling on the side of the road.
Is he okay?
He's fine.
He's fine.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah.
He's fine, Philip.
And so he's okay.
That was a journey. Okay.
He's fine. But that happens in people's brains like all the time. Like just those random thought of what could happen captures our attention and creates a story. And then
Should I go back and check on him though? I'm so worried.
Philip has really embraced this story.
You're fine. He's fine.
Okay,
You're
okay.
5 miles down the road. He's okay.
Okay.
He's fine. But you're completely anxious and, you know, you have had the chemical reaction of if this had actually happened to you. Your body gave you some adrenaline, it gave you some cortisol, it gave you those hormones. You have had like the mental exercise of what you would do. And now you need to calm down and keep driving. And so that is a really frequent type of catastrophic thinking. Like just constantly thinking of the worst case scenario that could happen just in your everyday life and then reacting to it and then having to regulate and carry on with your day like it's not happening.
So is the first part of that recognizing, okay, this is me being catastrophic thinking and regulating first, and then moving into the stage of, okay, I don't need to have these thoughts, like catching yourself before you start going down that train of thought in the first place?
So there is a skill that's called thought stopping. It's a part of a cognitive restructuring skill.
I think I did some of that when I was doing PTSD therapy, actually.
Yes, you probably did. CBT is a very cognitive behavioral therapy is a very big component of a lot of PTSD treatment. And so cognitive restructuring is basically recognizing when our brain might be using like cognitive distortion or some different types of thinking that might lead us to be more catastrophic or rumination. Recognize that as happening and stop it. So the way that might look as far as a thought stopping skill is this is the one I always tell people, and I know it sounds silly, but it works.
Okay.
So, picture a stop sign.
Okay.
Doing it.
And in your brain, you would say out loud or in your head the word stop. And then you try to stop that thought process and say, I don't have to live in a future. I don't have to create a future that's not happening. I don't have to problem solve a problem I'm not having. That guy is 5 miles down the road. So the way it looks in application is you're driving down the road on a 3-lane highway. You see a guy on the side of the road pedaling his bike, and you have the intrusive thought, oh my gosh, what would happen if he came across the lane and I hit him with my car? Oh my gosh, I hit him with my car. I'm going to have to pull over. I'm going to have to stop. I don't have to live in a future that doesn't exist. Because our brain is really good at what it does. It's going to pop up like 5 seconds later, like with that thought again. But what if this happens? Stop. I'm already past him on the road. That didn't happen. 10 seconds later. But what if this happens? Stop. I already know that I don't have to problem solve for problems that don't exist. And so you just use that restructuring to kind of think of it as creating a barrier for that pathway that your brain wants to go down. Because we have taught our brains to do this. Like we have taught our brains to kind of think in these patterns of constant rumination. And so unteaching it takes a little time. And so when we teach the skill that way, we might then have a scenario that would cause somebody to be able to use that skill to be able to get advantage on a roll in the game. But then you kind of encourage them to continue to use it through the week. And you know, it's a skill that a lot of people have rumination. a lot of people, it might not be catastrophe oriented, but it might be like, oh, I really wish I hadn't done that at work. I really wish that I hadn't said that to my boss. I wish that, you know, why did I wear that? You know, what was I doing? Like, why did I do my makeup that way? Like, you know, you have these like constant thoughts, and like you're just constantly living in scenarios in the past or things that aren't happening in the future. A lot of people experience that.
That's fair.
And so learning skills is helpful to reduce that anxiety.
Yeah, that's awesome.
I want to say first, I'm a little upset with you because you shouldn't be reading my diary. That's very rude. Come on the show after reading that and be like, okay, what can I talk to Philip about? We'll talk about this later. That's one of my things. But in that same kind of way, yes, absolutely. There was one time that we were playing in a campaign, and my character got frozen by a basilisk. If you guys don't know, basilisk basically can turn you to stone. And it was this kind of thing where I had multiple opportunities to potentially fight against this to make it not happen. And I failed every roll.
Yeah.
And so it's like, outside of D&D, I am mostly a person who's like, I need to plan for every single terrible situation. I have to have a backup plan and a backup plan for the backup plan. To have a situation where it's like, there is nothing I could do for this. Technically, I could think about the worst case scenario for it, but it doesn't really matter in this. And having to like deal with that feeling and deal with that anxiety, it's like, because while you know it's a fake situation, I'm not actually getting frozen in stone.
Sure.
I'm not actually passing
You care
away.
about your character.
But I'm having to go through the exact same feelings or very similar feelings of what that would be like to actually experience something that's very stressful. And while it wasn't nice, like I didn't enjoy that feeling, I also realized I survived. I walked away from the table. I was able to go home. I was able to live my life in a normal, not everything went terrible. Not everything for the rest of my life was bad. And afterwards, my character did come back. Thank you to the dungeon master that allowed it to happen. And I was able to continue on. It's like even the worst case scenario that I was always or continually thinking about in that session wasn't the worst it could have been. And I survived it. So, yeah.
Yeah, you do. And I think that anybody who's played a game or played a campaign with people, like you start to care so much, not just about your characters, but like you start to fold into the stories that they're telling, like with, and it's like, oh, I really want this to go well for them. Like, how can I help this go well for them? What can I do? Like, can I get the help action? Can I do this? There was, like in our campaign, I remember your character was trying to romance your wife.
Yes.
Your
The other
wife.
character was my real wife.
Such a great
like,
scene.
We were all like, we want this to go so well. Like, we were like,
So
do
cute.
this.
So cute.
It was so fun. And it's like all of us working together to
That's
find
right.
that thing. Yes, I know how to romance my
That's
wife
right.
in real life, but it's also that fun type style of, what if I didn't?
Yeah.
What would my friends do to support me in this situation?
I need to get her a necklace. We need to find him a necklace, guys. How do we do this? What can we steal? What can we do?
That did happen. Like, how can we steal a necklace?
Did happen.
Oh, no.
But I mean, it does come back, like that is the power of storytelling, is you can really get people engaged and you can really get people like pulled in and not just focusing on your success, because it's not just what you learn about the table. It's what you see other people learning. Like if you see someone going through a hard time, like, oh my gosh, like this is really hard. Like they're having a really rough time with, you know, maybe they're a wild magic sorcerer and they keep blowing themselves up for some reason or turning themselves into a plant. You know, you start thinking like, oh gosh, we don't want this to happen to them. Is there something we can do? Like, can someone go get that plant? Like, what can we do to make sure that that person is okay? And I think that that's what community is about. It's about building resilience when we are having hard times and recognizing that everybody goes through them. When we are anxious, when we are depressed, when we are having struggles, we feel alone and we feel isolated. And that's one of the things that group therapy really helps to prevent. It helps people from feeling alone and isolated. And that's why, you know, sometimes learning about this in a group can be really helpful. When I talk about catastrophic thinking, or when I talk about like thought stopping in a group setting, like all of my groups are, because the reality is not everybody has like a narrative internal voice. Like not everybody thinks that way.
Hold on. What are you talking
about?
And so
this happens.
Okay.
Like not everybody thinks about things like verbally in their brain. Like not everybody has like a narrative internal voice of, oh gosh, how did I do this? Or why did I do this? Some people think in emotion. Some people think like reactively. It's not always people thinking the same way. And
that's insane.
It's true.
Okay.
And especially like if you get into different areas of neurodivergence and not always being able to see like social cueing, like TTRPGs become a safe space. Like I don't mean that like in a sarcastic frame of mind. It really does become a safe place to explore. It becomes a safe space to say you don't know how to do something. It becomes a safe space to like try new things, try out different parts of your identity that you want to make sure that can be tolerated in a safe location. TTRPGs can be magical in that way. Not just like in spellcasting, but like magical in the way of like building community and building support for each other.
It's powerful.
I think that's good. And I think that's one of the reasons why I've always been drawn to TTRPGs. And it's like I've always been someone who enjoys like helping others and enjoys getting to do that, and like that collaborative storytelling aspect and helping to be the person to guide characters through these like transformative journeys is so rewarding and impactful, both from a storytelling perspective but also just from a like psychological perspective. I've had one of the games that I'm playing that I run professionally, they're entering their 18th level. They're entering like the last few chapters of the campaign.
You actually got there?
We got there.
Oh my goodness.
What level did you start at?
They started at level 10.
Oh, okay.
Yes. So they didn't start at level 1. Would be wild if they had, but started at level 10. And one of the cool things, this one character just had this really awesome scene where like, because now that you're at these really high levels, the characters that are like clerics are starting to like talk to their deities and all these like really cool things that like you don't always get to do. And so we had this really awesome scene where this character was betrayed and then killed and then got to meet their god, and had this really awesome impactful scene where they got to really kind of be raw and open with their deity, and also like the deity kind of having a really good conversation with them and then them coming back. And both from a narrative perspective, it was super awesome, but from a player perspective, I got to talk with the player afterwards, and it was just this really cool, rewarding, like, he had to let go of control and to like let it happen. And he did really like he was trying really hard not to die. He did a really, really good job of just like doing everything that he could to not get to that point. But when it inevitably happened, because the odds were heavily stacked against him, he still like had to have that moment of surrender, and which was really, really powerful to be able to feel that I was trusted to guide through that, but also be able to have this really impactful moment where he got this now like really impactful scene with his deity and got this ancestral weapon and new armor, all this really, really cool stuff that he got out of it. But just to be on the other side of that, and the rewarding part of that comes through that character development, both internally in the game and externally as a person.
That's fair.
But I think one of the key parts of that is trust.
Yeah.
Because it's like, and it's the same thing with the therapy that it is with a D&D game. And you read all of these horror stories about players who don't trust their DM, or players who don't trust the other characters and things like that. I did want to ask, so like in the scenario of like bringing in multiple people, what happens if you do notice that there's a lack of trust in the other players or in you as the person leading it?
Sure. So, I mean, I think that it goes back to trust is something earned over time. These are kind of capped sessions, so it's usually a 10 series group.
Okay.
But trust is something that's earned over time, and I think that it is easier to trust in a group environment than most people think. Like, as long as we have the conversations up front of anything that's happening that makes you uncomfortable, there's a way to stop it. Anything that is happening that you need to slow down, there's a way to slow down. You know, having that conversation, in therapy terms, we would really call it building rapport. Recognizing that it takes some skill to be able to get a group to work together. Like, I've done group therapy pretty consistently now for the past 5 to 7 years. of having groups of people. And so a part of my practice is I treat individuals who have had a DUI. And so those individuals might be in a group with 8 to 15 people, and they are kind of talking about their experience through that process. Well, there's a lot of distrust in that environment. One, because sometimes you're being made to come to therapy, and that is not always a happy place to be. And then 2, because you don't know the people who are in the group with you, and you're sometimes in legal proceedings, and you feel like, what and how is it safe for me to talk here? And so building rapport with a group is a lot about setting boundaries and expectations up front. It's a lot about recognizing what we're here for and what we're not. And I think that most therapists understand that to really be an effective therapist, you really have to be someone who can generate what you'll hear called unconditional positive regard, is how it was always put in a lot of our textbooks when we were in school.
Yeah.
Like, just no matter what, the person in front of you has value and meaning in their experience. And no matter what, you recognize that them being where they are is because they want to move and grow, and you should be able to assist in facilitating that.
That's awesome.
Unconditional positive regard.
Unconditional positive regard.
I love that.
Yeah.
It's a very similar mentality that they're imparting with us as I'm doing like teacher training.
Yeah.
It's like seeing every student as someone who is capable of achievement and capable of growth and development is so important, because it does really frame how you interact with the person in that regard.
If you enter into a situation and the person there's automatically a power differential. Like, one person's here and one person's here. And you are constantly talking down to someone or not being kind to someone, like in the case of the DUI, if you're constantly like, you shouldn't have done that, there's just, it doesn't do anything.
Yeah.
I mean, it might create a little moral superiority, but what's the phrase that's like, blowing out someone else's candle doesn't make yours shine brighter? Like,
true.
recognizing that you can still be there for someone having a hard time, whether or not that hard time came by bad choice or not. And so I think that developing trust in a group is, one, making sure that people know that while you're in the group, you're protected. If someone in the group starts, like, outside of like a goofy character interaction, if someone in the group starts bad mouthing, being rude, being disrespectful, that person is gone from the group. Like, you are in a safe spot.
That's good.
It is a confidential location. There's a requirement. You are signing that you will be confidential and not bring other people's stuff to other people. These are skill groups that I run. They're not like psychotherapy groups where we're going to sit and like talk about, if someone has severe childhood trauma. They might choose to bring that up to the group as something like, I noticed that I started using thought stopping a lot because, when I'm at home and I hear something downstairs, I immediately go back and I think about, my family when I was younger, and maybe someone's down there and I need to, stop. Like, those kind of stories might get told, but that's not the formative part of the skills group itself. The skills group is designed to really teach someone, anybody really, how do you deal with anxiety? How do you deal with stress? How do you kind of manage that in a safe way? And then it also just kind of brings in the practice aspect of the TTRPG. I will say that I am using D&D because obviously I have played it the most.
Love it, yeah.
But you can use other role-playing games or other tabletop games. I am trying to learn the Daggerheart system because they have a couple of things in that system.
The Hope and Fear system.
The Hope and Fear
fascinating
system.
For that.
You also get to create like your special power and name that special power as a part of character creation.
That's
like
really
you
cool.
have a skill and you keep building those skills. And so there are some really cool aspects of that game that I would like to see like kind of into it. There's a game called Vaesen, which I played in our training when I was being trained for TTRPG. And it was really interesting because, again, there were some really neat social skills. Like at the end of the session, like you kind of everybody talks about the session and gives achievement points to other people in the group.
That's nice.
Like you give like little like, you did this so well and I really appreciate it. This was the best moment of the game, so you get these 2 points. And like that's really a neat part of that. That's kind of that session. And like there are things that you can
cool too.
yeah. Oh yeah, if you've never seen the art, it's beautiful.
Is that the one that we've talked about before with like the investigators?
Yes. So with Vaesen, you are in Scandinavia in the 1920-esque time period.
Yeah.
Okay.
And you're a part of the society, and the society can see Vaesen, which are these mythological creatures that can't be seen unless they want to be seen. And you can see them because something, of course, tragic has happened to you in your life. And so you can see Vaesen, and you get to decide why you can see Vaesen.
It's kind of like I don't remember the name of them, but the horses in Harry Potter that like only certain people can see if they've experienced loss.
Nargoyles or something like that.
Something like that, I think. But that's interesting.
Like the flying horses. Yes.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it is one of those things that so you can see Vaesen because you have some interest in mysticism, and it's like very much Houdini-esque, like being interested in
Thestrals.
Thestrals, yes. Another one that's really interesting that I've been diving a lot into and I really want to play. I haven't had the opportunity to, but have you heard of Dread? Okay, so Dread.
I've heard of Doom. I have not heard of Dread.
So the entire idea of Dread is it is a role-playing game. You're playing certain characters that can be set in any setting, in any timescape. But the idea is that instead of dice, you use a Jenga tower. And as you play, as you try to do something that has the potential for failure, you remove a dice or you remove a block and build it on top.
I see.
But to have that visual representation of dread occurring as you play through it.
I feel like that would help reduce anxiety.
Absolutely not.
At all. Like, hey,
no, that would
For
be...
people who need more anxiety in their life, you should play Dread.
You need to empathize with people with anxiety.
Yeah. Listen, life has skills you can use, but gravity happens to everyone.
Well, the idea of the game too is at any point in time, if you're touching the Jenga tower, you can fail. You can choose to like not pull a block and let the thing fail. But if at any point in time while you're touching it, or the result of you touching it, the tower falls, your character's dead. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. It's an interesting system. So I will have to play it sometime.
That is an interesting system, but the games aren't going to last long.
No. And that's very much designed to not be a long-form campaign.
But definitely, you want to give some hope, and unfortunately, gravity is not one of those things that you can give a lot of hope against.
No, gravity is inevitable.
Yeah, that's right. But, I mean, there are some great systems out there, and it's just a matter, it doesn't have to be D&D, it doesn't have to be in the past. It can be in the present, or it can be in the future.
Yeah.
But you definitely can kind of work the system that works best for you.
Absolutely.
But as the person who's DMing the game, there are some applied TTRPG therapists who just have a DM for them, and they focus more on the therapy. But those are more like, I feel like therapeutic sessions, not so much skill building. And, you know, there are just some HIPAA things within that I don't particularly like. But for some people it works really well, but for me, I enjoy DMing, so why not DM?
Mine to do both. Very cool.
Thank you once again for all of that. I do have like a kind of final question along with everything. So if I am an anxious person, which I am an anxious person, and a homeschooler, or not a homeschooler, just anyone who has anxiety, what would you recommend for me in concerns of like TTRPGs and just anxiety in general? What's your recommendations?
I think that with anxiety, the important thing is to recognize that you're feeling it. And I think that so many people try to white knuckle anxiety, like, I'm not going to let this get to me. I'm not going to let this get to me. This is going to be a long form explanation. I apologize.
No, go ahead.
So one of the things that I like to tell people about anxiety is recognizing that the more anxious we are, the worse our brain works. Like, there is a latency that occurs. And so I always, again, very visual, I always kind of tell people, imagine anxiety is like the first hill of a roller coaster. And like that first hill of a roller coaster where you have no momentum from the ride. And so you're working your way up to the hill, which in this reference is your panic attack, anxiety attack, right? So you're working your way up to the hill. And as you are going up the hill, it's life's little stresses that are pushing you up the hill.
Yeah.
And it's rumination that's really working the engine that gets you up the hill. And the higher up you go on the hill, different things have to be done to pull you down it, because that's what anxiety, the goal should be.
Yeah.
It's not to not feel anxiety. That is a biological imperative of our bodies. You're never going to get rid of it. So it's regulating it by putting in some safety precautions to help us keep further down the hill. So, you know, at the low part of the hill, it's doing things like talking with your friends, going out and having dinner, like making sure that you're getting enough sleep, making sure that you're eating well. As we get up the hill, because life stresses are moving us up higher, we might have to do some things like breathing exercises or grounding exercises. As we get further and further up the hill, maybe sometimes people might want to try medication intervention. Maybe people want to try grounding. Maybe people want to try like different higher level breathing exercises. When you're up at the top of the hill in panic attack land, you're not trying anything. You're surviving. You are focused on being able to take a breath in and hoping your heart doesn't explode. That is kind of that whole picture of what anxiety is. So really, anxiety and working on anxiety is about how do you manage the ride up that hill? And what can you do in the ride up the hill? And recognizing that the higher we are up, the more difficult it is to try low-level things to bring us down. So like when we're midway through the hill and we should be trying breathing exercises, that's great. Do the breathing exercise.
Yeah.
But when you're up at the top part of the hill, you need to have practiced breathing exercises a lot to be able to focus on doing those when you're feeling that anxious and worried. So anxiety is a lot of little steps to reduce and manage everyday stress in life, to keep yourself even, to keep yourself regulated, and just recognizing that there is no harm in getting help for it. At any point, wherever you are on that spectrum, go get help for it. Go talk to someone. It doesn't always have to be medication. A lot of my patients do anxiety reduction with no medication. It's just behavioral changes, changing how we think, changing how we react to stress. And a lot of that starts with talking to someone about how to do it.
Okay, so can I have just Michelle follow me around all the time? Is that also a coping mechanism?
Yeah.
Like, even this, like if you're on a phone and then whenever I'm just like, hey, did you hear what they just said to me?
Regulate.
We just need to have her record, regulate, breathe.
That's right.
Thinking
Take
traps.
a deep breath in, hold your breath, and breathe out. Yeah.
Oh, goodness.
But I mean, it does come back to, and I do get a lot of people who say, like, I heard you in my head say, and it's like, oh, okay.
Isn't that true though, that like sometimes that internal voice, it all comes from like the people that we give weight into our lives
I
of
think
like
that absolutely is true. Like sometimes if you're someone who hears like a narrative voice, you can hear that narrative voice in different tones, and sometimes it matches the tone of people you know and love.
That's good. That's awesome.
Thank you so much for all of this. Now, we're not done yet for this. You're not leaving the room just quite yet, but we're going to end the episode here just because I don't know how long it is, but it's probably pretty long just because we have so much fun.
We could honestly probably just keep talking about this for hours and hours.
Did not realize this much time. They had to tell me. Like, stop talking.
No, it's so nice. It's so great.
good.
It's just for anyone who's like you're at work already
This is
and you're in
Wednesday
your
night.
car.
We're watching it live.
And you're like, wow, I'm sitting here like 15 minutes after I got there, still listening to go into work. There's going to be a bonus episode though, where we
Yes.
just talk through another part and potentially get to play one of these games
right.
along
Yes.
with you. So we're going to do that. But Andrew, if they want to find that bonus episode, where do they go?
Absolutely. Well, they need to make sure that they are following along on our social medias. So make
Okay.
sure that you have liked and subscribed this video, or hit the follow button if you're listening listening on Spotify, Apple Podcast, or wherever you listen. And make sure that you're following us on Facebook, Instagram, all of those social media places, because that's where you'll get to see that the new episode drops. But other than that, really, you'll just keep posted, because we're going to have more stuff, awesome stuff planned. And it's going to probably be the first kind of actual play that our podcast does. So I'm super excited for that.
Okay, well, Michelle, usually we give it to our guests to tell our audience what they're supposed to comment today. So after you've helped them learn about their anxiety and how to deal with it, what do you want them to comment on this video?
So much power.
We really are giving you a lot of power at this moment.
I mean, Mia Marge before said you have to do an entire article, like an essay on it.
She did.
You did that. Yes. So what is it?
Disturbing. Thanks, Miramar. So I would say this is just kind of talking about anxiety and going in that vein. YouTube is a wonderful place. The internet is an interesting place. But what is your favorite skill to reduce your anxiety? Like, what do you do? Is there a video for a breathing exercise you really like? Is there a video for a meditation you really like? Where do you go where you want to learn them? I will throw one out and just say, if you're looking for this and you're looking for a great free resource, the VA has put out a wonderful YouTube series called #LiveWholeHealth. And that one has several hours, hundreds of hours of meditations, like chair yoga. It's got breathing techniques. It's got meditation, visualization. So if you have never done one and you want to try one from that list, you can. But otherwise, what is your favorite skill you use to regulate when you are having a lot of anxiety?
That's good.
I love that. That's powerful.
Mine is definitely the grounding. I like to just kind of sit for a moment, feel things, engage all of my senses. What am I tasting? What am I smelling? What am I seeing in the room around me? What am I feeling? To help me get out of that this whirlwind that I can get into. Don't have to do it many times nowadays, but back when it was really, really bad, that was my go-to.
Yeah, I am a counted breathing exercise kind of person.
I do like that too.
They work really well for me. I will shout out my sister, who does not like counted breathing exercises because she has a little dyslexia, and so the number, thinking of the number, makes her really anxious, and so it makes her hyperventilate. So that just to say, every regulation tool isn't for everybody. So there are always some you can learn that don't kind of trigger you into more anxiety.
Absolutely.
What about you?
Counting down is one of my favorite ones to do. I learned that I realized I was doing it without even thinking after I had trained myself to do so.
Yeah.
And just wow, I'm at 5, 4, 3. And I'm oh, I was anxious. That's what was going on. That's fair. So it's really helpful. It also helps stabilize me. It's okay, things can go 100 miles per hour in my brain. It's you're still counting. You're still here. And then once you get to 1, it's okay, let's realize what we're feeling.
That's right.
Let's be able to, I won't say handle it, but recognize that we're here and then move on from that.
It's incredibly effective if you're in an environment that's stressful, and it's people specifically, because you start counting down out loud. There's 5, 4, and they're what is happening? Especially when you're a teacher.
Run.
Ooh.
Then I'm going to have to count to not be anxious about your counting.
I don't know, that kind of, for me, if someone starts counting, I'm thinking of my mom, 1, 2.
See, that's if you're counting up. If you're counting down, then it's okay, something bad is about to happen.
But nothing bad is about to happen. We're just going to end the episode, and then you get to hear more from us in a little bit. I'm not sure when the bonus episode's going to come out, but it should come out soon.
We'll see how much Philip feels inspired to add sound effects and digital engineering to it to make it seem really, really cool.
Yeah, hear that, editor Philip? This is on you now. Actually, to this camera, this is on you.
I keep doing it to you.
But thank you so much for watching, and we will see you next time.